One of the most closely watched trials in Kern County history is now in the hands of a jury. Both sides presenting closing arguments today in the murder trial of Trezell and Jacqueline West, charged with killing their two adopted boys months before reporting them missing in December of 2020. In his closing argument today, prosecutor Eric Smith told the jury Trezell and Jacqueline West are adept at telling lies. Smith claimed they lied to law enforcement, their parents, and even their own children. Ultimately, Smith said the West's four other children unraveled their parents' scheme. When a California City police officer interviewed the children the day after Orrin and Orson were reported missing, they all said the same thing. They hadn't seen their brothers for weeks. A week later, the West's eldest biological child came forward with startling information. He told a social worker he saw Orrin die at the family's apartment in Bakersfield in September. He said his parents never called 911 for help.
They let him die. Because why? They knew that their lives would functionally end at that point. That's it. Their whole lives are based on money for what? 4 kids that they've adopted. That's the whole basis of their lives. They've been warehousing children, that'd be done. They'd be prosecuted from a crime, but most importantly, their 2 biological children would be taken away. And for all the stuff that they did to their adopted children, they absolutely 100% loved and adored those biological children. All the circumstantial evidence points to one thing. They were never in Cal City.
Smith said it's unclear exactly what led to Orrin's death, but afterward, the West conspired to kill Orson. In its closing argument, the defense said police focused on Trezell and Jacqueline West from the beginning, ignoring other possibilities. They say police didn't look into the dozens of sex offenders living in California City and didn't thoroughly check a tip reporting the boys had been seen in Arlington, Texas.
The whole theory just doesn't even add up. One of the boys dies because you might have beaten him so bad, or you might have given him a shake, so then you just get rid of the other one, because then that would be obvious if you just had one kid. They're doing it for money, but they're going to get rid of 2. You would just run this same theory and say one of them wandered off. Why would you have to say the second one? They're not shoes, they're not earrings. Like, that would be suspicious. If you've got a confession or some bodies or some hard evidence, well then yeah, it is what it is. Not on this.
Overt acts, things that are done.
The Kern County Superior Court jury will return for deliberations beginning tomorrow morning.
KGET.com court reporter Jason Katowski joining us in studio now with more on today's closing arguments. You've been there every day of this trial. Tell us more today about the prosecution's closing argument. And I understand it lasted for several hours.
Yes, Prosecutor Eric Smith, over a 2-hour closing argument, said exactly how Orrin and Orson died remains unclear, and it's also unclear whether it was Trezell or Jacqueline who killed them, but he said both were involved in the deaths and need to be held responsible. Smith said the Wests adopted children not out of love, but because the state paid them $1,000 a month for each child, making the children their primary source of income. He said they just wanted the money and didn't love their adopted sons like their 2 biological children. And there was testimony that the Wests were physically abusive with the adopted children. Smith said the Wests' eldest child saw Orrin die. That boy testified he saw Orrin vomit and his body turn cold, and his parents told him to stay quiet because if anyone else found out, the other children, including him, would be taken away. He said the Wests moved to California City a week later and Orson disappeared. Smith said the Wests conspired to kill Orson and got rid of his body too, and then waited 3 months to report the 2 boys missing, giving them plenty of time to concoct a story, get new cell phones, and make other preparations to back up their story.
So what did the defense say to counter that argument, Jason?
The defense argued that this was a shoddy investigation from the beginning, with California City Police failing to write reports or get video evidence of everything they did, and forgetting to mention one person they spoke with entirely. Alexia Torres Stallings, lead attorney for Jacqueline West, said there are no confessions in this case and there isn't an overwhelming amount of evidence. She said investigators should have conducted more DNA testing and taken fingerprint evidence, and she said there was a lot more that could have been done in this case overall. Timothy Hennessy, lead counsel for Trezell West, said police had blinders on. They didn't check on the dozens of registered sex offenders living in the area, follow up on a tip that the boys were seen in Arlington, Texas, or take a serious look at the boys' biological family.
All right, so what happens next?
Well, the jury has this case now. Closing arguments wrapped up shortly before 4:30, and the 12 jurors went to the back to start deliberating. They will resume deliberating at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and then it's just a waiting game to see when and if they come back with a verdict.
Now, we've all been reflecting in the newsroom how difficult a case this is for any juror because of the lack of hard evidence. All of the evidence presented is essentially circumstantial evidence.
Yes, with the exception of the testimony of the eldest child who says that he witnessed Orrin die, the rest is circumstantial evidence, but Prosecutor Eric Smith pointed out that circumstantial evidence under the law holds just as much weight as direct evidence, and the jury needs to consider all that.
Yeah, and there have been convictions, I know, based only on circumstantial evidence with no body, right?
That's right. This is, while somewhat unusual to have a no-body homicide, it's not unheard of at all, and there have been convictions.
Okay,
All right, Jason Katowski, KGET.com. Thanks for the update.
thanks,
Thank
Jason.
you.